So we didn't broadcast any editions on 13th of November 2023 or on the 14th of November 2023. So this is the 15th of November 2023, and we're going to cover from our world exclusive, original, diagnostic, and ethical standpoints. The installation by SUNAK in the UK government of the crook, the sleazeball, corrupt criminal, racist David Cameron as supposedly the UK Foreign Secretary. And that has been perpetrated by Sunak temporarily, that is, in terms of time, to coincide with the sacking on the same day, sacking of Suellar, Cruella, Fernandez. Now, for the simple reason that Cameron was in post for 6 years as UK Prime Minister, the fact that he has been installed as a minister in the cabinet of Rishi Sunak drew the main attention in terms of the imagery. His pictures, the announcement was made on Monday, so therefore the print papers, Fleet Street papers, could carry the images only on Tuesday, which happened. Now, in Wednesday's papers, it's not Cameron's picture, but the picture of Suellar, Cruella, Fernandez. Actually, a particularly noticeable picture which has been credited to Reuters news agency. It shows that her hair is loose and she is looking quite angry. And in the words of the I newspaper, Suellar Braverman launches blistering attack on the Prime Minister a day after he sacks her as Home Secretary. Sunak is accused of failing on Stop the Boats pledge ahead of today's ruling on Rwanda deportations. Now, this is obviously printed in the evening of Tuesday, and the Rwanda ruling came only in the morning of Wednesday, and there was no preview. We shall come to the Rwanda decision in this edition. Suellar Ibilar's scathing letter claims Rishi Sunak reneged on a secret deal that helped him win Tory leadership. And Fernandez shows ambitions to become leader. But one senior Conservative MP accuses Fernandez of narcissistic crap. So that is Suella Ibila Cruella Fernandez, as seen by the I newspaper. And there is also a piece branded exclusive or labeled exclusive with a picture of the other evil one, George the criminal Osborne. And it says Cameron will turn to George Osborne for informal advice. So it's the Cameron Osborne gang is back. And there is a picture on page 5 of King Brian with the heading King Charles uses 75th birthday to back his feeding the needy. How the fuck? Remember what happened during the COVID 19 government behavior fronted by Boris Johnson is that billions of pounds, according to the most widely mentioned kind of figure, it's just under 10 billion pounds. But I would say that the equivalent of the double that sum has been robbed by conservatives. Anyone who is still not sure as to what the Conservative Party actually is about should understand that it is the worst form of democratically disguised criminality that has been found anywhere in the world. So, for example, with the HS2, it is not something that Rishi Sunak did because he was intelligent when he announced that it was not going to be funded to the full. It was because there was no way, there was absolutely no way the UK central government could keep on funding the criminals who took over the HS2 project under the guises of contractors. So let's check the latest published position about HS2. So this is the time is now 14:53 hours GMT on Wednesday, the 15th of November 2023. This is when I'm checking the HS2 overspend. According to the Institute for Government, the HS2 Costs and Controversies published a month ago. Let's see what they're saying. The date is 5th of November. Sorry, I read that again. 5th of October 2023. And his byline to Gemma Tetlow and Jeremy Pettison. And it says, what is HS2? And its second paragraph is what we want to focus on, which is the scheme has become, well, it's Institute of Government, but their website is not edited properly, is it? It says the scheme has become controversial due to delays, cost increases, and more recently decisions from central government to scrap sections of the line. In November 2021, a separate arm of the line, originally proposed to link Birmingham and Leeds, was removed from the plan. Then in October 2023, Rishi Sunak used his party conference speech in Manchester to announce that the government was also cancelling the Birmingham to Manchester leg. How much will HS2 cost? The Gordon Brown Labour government initially estimated that HS2 would cost 37 billion in 2009 prices. But the expected cost has since increased dramatically. Between 2011 and 2013, the cost of high speed 2 rose by 12.6 billion in cash terms, including 7.5 billion for rolling stock not previously costed, and an additional 5.1 billion on construction of the line. Now look at all these. These are all to do with the contractors. Estimates from HS2 Limited, the non-departmental public body set up to manage the project, fell between 2015 and 2017 on the basis of assumed efficiencies, including reducing the cost of property acquisition, getting contractors to deliver more efficiently, and reducing overhead costs. But these efficiencies were not found. Now, what the Sunday Times report, let's check on HS2 as investigated by Sunday Times. This is the piece on the Times and the Sunday Times website, and it says the HS2, and it's an investigation. It's a headed investigation. HS2, the secret files that expose a multi-billion pound cover up. Now, if we take the example of HS2 alone, the amount of money that is stolen from the public by the crooks involved in the project as contractors and agents and brokers. The company in charge of constructing HS2 railways, the company, remember the company, this is one of the contractors conglomerates. Company in charge of constructing the HS2 railway has been accused of deliberately covering up its escalating costs to ensure politicians would keep spending billions of pounds of public money on the project. Remember? Now, if you then distribute the sum of only £1 billion among the people in poverty, the people who are being excruciatingly penalized by the deprivation, want, and poverty creation, in other words, DWP, which is officially described as Department for Work and Pensions. So if you distribute just £1 billion among the people that are in hardship and have been in hardship for years, then you can see that £1 billion would be a significant amount that would make a significant difference to the level of income being allowed to be received by the most vulnerable and most poverty stricken. Now, if you then add to the 1 billion the 20 billion pounds that have been stolen under the various disguises of COVID 19 contracts, then you can see that poverty in most acute areas of poverty and hardship would disappear. Poverty would disappear for more than a year. And if you then add the robbery committed under the cover of HS2 and add together the stolen amounts, then you can see that for at least 5 years in 2023 prices, poverty in the United Kingdom would have disappeared. Assuming, of course, that this money was timely and proportionately and properly distributed among the most needy. And by poverty, I include the people on the street, whom Suellar, Cruella Fernandez condemned as being on the streets living in tents as a lifestyle choice by them. So if you then add together all the money that has been stolen by the conservatives, both as contractors and as government ministers and departments, then you can see that poverty should not exist in the United Kingdom population at all. And yet, here is the ridiculous King Brian opening his 75th birthday kind of propaganda by posing as someone opening a charity for helping the needy. There shouldn't be any such needy people in a society. where hundreds of billions of pounds have been available and have been stolen and are being stolen by criminals in the name of serving various aspects of the society, the economy. So when King Brian opens that thing, he insults ordinary intelligence and he insults the truth. Now, the Sunday Times investigation focused on the account given by a whistleblower, Stephen Cresswell, a former HS2 senior cost analyst who made repeated attempts to alert the company's fraud department, the National Audit Office, and cabinet ministers. Stephen Cresswell says the company deployed a classic playbook used on big publicly funded construction projects of holding back real information on costs of a project until after the Department for Transport had given approval to start work. When, when notice to proceed had been given for the next phase of work, HS2 would go back to the department and say, "Oh, we've been unlucky. Can we have some more money? It's too late to cancel because we have dug the hole," Cresswell said. An unfair dismissal claim he has lodged against the company alleges a criminal offense had been committed, namely fraud. HS2's lawyers replied to him in March this year to say it had considered his allegations and had concluded that no action was needed because the matters raised were subjective. Fuck them. Every question about fraud, every question about corruption, every question about theft is by definition subjective because it cannot be objective for the simple reason that the whistleblower raising the issue, raising the concern, raising the alarm is an individual. And as individual, they can only use their individual sense, understanding, perception, knowledge. So Stephen Cresswell raised the objections, concern, and HS2's lawyers replied to him saying that his allegations had concluded. Allegations that he made had been looked at, and the HS2 had concluded that no action was needed because the matters raised were subjective. There is no such thing as subjective, which contradicts the law, contradicts the objective. In this context, the subjective also has to be the objective because it's the same individual who, as an individual, that is subjectively noticed the widespread corruption, theft, and criminality taking place. When the COVID 19 inquiry opened, it's, it will be misleading to call it Pandora's boxes because almost all the evidence so far published as given by various employees in the government departments, including employees in number 10 Downing Street. All the evidence predominantly, overwhelmingly, assert that Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister at the time, Matt Hancock, the Health Secretary at the time, and other heads of government or departments, they made comments about the very life of the people affected by the COVID virus. And on more than 3 occasions, according to the published accounts so far, accounts that have been only available, have been made available by rigorous investigation into the technology, so that COVID, the main technology, used WhatsApp messaging during the COVID 19 restrictions, etc., and the communications that took place. That those COVID 19 would be those COVID 19 actions, and activities would be applied to save lives. That was the claim that was being promoted at the time when the COVID 19 struck in 2020. But during the most recent edition of evidence based on the submissions made to the committee chair or committee, the inquiry, the most consistent, elaborate evidence shows that the government department or the government departments were fronted by individuals who posed and pretended to be dedicated to helping people escape the deadly impact of the COVID 19, but were actually involved in hiding what they were doing. They exaggerated the amount of service that they were providing whereas there was, on the facts, there was no service at all. Because these people, as reported through the retrieved WhatsApp messages about Boris Johnson and messages from Boris Johnson, messages to Boris Johnson at the time, it is clear that they were not concerned about saving lives, let alone respecting lives of the people. Throughout the beginning of the, or throughout the early stages of the broadcasts that we began during the COVID 19, let's say during 2020, we referred to some things that were happening, and we said various times that we would look in detail later. Well, this is part of the later time. Because as the things were happening at the time that we were simultaneously broadcasting as well, we couldn't examine, investigate the criminality that was going on. So this applies to the COVID 19 as well as to other topics like the three criminals who have done PhDs at the expense of East London, Tower Hamlets, and another criminal who has done PhD really should have called the PhD thing something to do with Tower Hamlets, but she didn't. But she stole the knowledge, abused the information she gathered over 8 years. So those four criminals who have done PhDs have told packs of lies. And because these are in permanent forms, they constitute ongoing defamation and libel, untruths. And we shall be examining those criminals' packs of lies in due course extensively. Now, during the COVID 19, let's say, so called allocations of contracts, billions of pounds were paid to criminals that have not delivered anything. Now, that was going on with the active participation of the then Prime Minister Boris Johnson and then Health Secretary Matt Hancock. And as the events have subsequently shown about Boris Johnson's holding parties in number 10 Downing Street, it is quite clear that they were lying. Johnson was lying, Matt Hancock was lying, and the others who repeated their lies to the ordinary public, saying to the ordinary public to steadfastly follow what we shall be doing. This is the this is part of the baby angel Geronimo essay, which means there is so much information to examine and dissect that we shall be going into the details in later editions. As for the installation of David Cameron and the sacking of Evila Suella Cruella, we have to do the same thing and we have to defer the discussion to another edition. The same applies to the Rwanda decision by the Supreme Court. So this has been 35, literally just under 36 minutes